Hello, my name is Piers Shepherd. I'm the Senior Researcher at the Family Education Trust. Family Education Trust is a national educational trust researching the causes and consequences of family breakdown. We publish resources on a broad range of family-related issues. We provide advice and guidance to parents, teachers, and others on issues relating to relationships and sex education. We're also dedicated to defending traditional marriage and biological reality in the face of current destructive trends. Now, all over Europe and the Western world, the traditional family based on marriage has come under attack. Across most of Western Europe and North America, marriage has been redefined from its traditional definition of one man and one woman. Divorce has increased and marriage has declined, and children are sexualized at a younger and younger age. But there are a few exceptions among European nations to this rule, and one of those exceptions is Hungary, which over the last decade and a half has sought to combat and reverse these destructive trends with considerable success. Today, we are going to be speaking to Dr Balázs Molnár of the Maria Kopp Institute for Democracy and Families, which works closely with the Hungarian government to promote pro-marriage and pro-family policies. And we're going to be talking to him about how Hungary has been reversing some of these destructive trends. So thank you very much, Dr. Molnár, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shepherd, for having me. It's my pleasure to speak about our demographic and family policies.
Thank you. Well, the first question I wanted to ask is to do with demographics. So this is one of the major problems affecting Europe. Most countries in Europe have fertility rates that are below the replacement level and also aging populations. However, in many European countries, governments don't like to talk about this and appear reluctant to do anything about it. However, Hungary is different and has taken active measures to raise its birth rate with some success. How has this been done?
Well, first of all, despite the fact that there is no European Union country, and we can also certainly say the same about the UK, where the number of births would reach replacement level. And even those countries in the EU who traditionally had high birth rates and fertility, like Ireland, Sweden, or France, experienced dropping fertility rate. This question is not on the agenda of the mainstream political parties or of the mainstream media or at all. It's not really addressed, whereby this leads to the global competition loss of the European Union or Europe as an entire continent. And Europe is going to be seen as the old continent, not because of the fantastic cultural heritage, but rather because the population is indeed getting older and older, which will bring along already in the short term, but certainly in the midterm and long term, sustainability issues like sustainability of public finances, healthcare schemes, or other social security schemes of practically every member state. When we speak about Hungary, we have experienced the loss of population, so declining population since 1981 onwards. So this is already a relatively long phenomenon. And that's exactly why it was very important that when the Christian Democratic government took office in 2010, they wanted to address this question. And they wanted to address this question by helping Hungarian families to have as many children as they would like to have. Now we have a lucky statement there, or lucky position there, as the Hungarians are usually quite pro-family and quite pro-children. All our research shows from the early 2000s onwards until last year that in average Hungarians would like to have more than 2 children, rather closer to 2.5 children, which of course would be enough to uphold the number of the population. So the actual job is to close the so-called fertility gap. So that is exactly what the government is trying to do here in Hungary. And if I may just say a couple of sentences about what has been reached in the last 13 years, because I believe that this might be of good example. So what we certainly have to address, nevertheless, is that we experience an always closer or always smaller number of women in childbearing ages in Hungary year by year. Since 2010, we have more than 250,000 less women in the childbearing ages in the last year. So practically what we would like to achieve here is to have less women have more children in order to reach our goals, which of course is quite a challenge. But if I may summarize the outcomes in a very short manner with just some data. As I have said, we have a declining population. Since 2010, we have another 300,000 population less, which is the only negative figure actually among the data I will be saying. In the case of the number of live births, and despite the fact that we had less and less women, we still had 3,000 more babies born than in 2010. So we have in 2010 we had the fertility rate was 1.25, so 100 women got 125 children, whereby this had been increased to 1.59 until 2021. And alone this fertility rate it is actually the highest among the European Union member states, 27%. Just because of this increase, we could welcome 150,000 more babies to Hungarian families. As I have said, in 1 year, we have roughly 90,000 babies born. In the case of the number of marriages, we have twice as many marriages in 2021 than we had in 2010, 35,000 in 2010 and 72,000 in 2021. Last time we had so many marriages was in 1986, a completely different world, I believe you would agree. In the case of divorces, we could also say that we have less divorces than we used to have. In 2010, we had 23,000, whereby in 2021, we only had 18,000 divorces. So again, despite the fact that we had much more marriages, we still could manage to decrease the number of divorces. And here it is also very important to talk about the number of abortions. Hungary experienced 40% less abortions between 2010 and 2021, and we can see a very, very eloquent downward trend in this matter as well. And what I believe can also make us very proud of this comprehensive family policy is that we managed to increase fertility, but we also managed to increase the rate of female employment. Actually, only Malta experienced a greater growth when it comes to female employment, whereby in 2010, we only had 54.6% of women between the age of 20 and 64 in employment. This has been 67% in 2021, so a quite nice 13% increase there. And again, something which might be worth to talk a bit more about under one of the other questions is that we go very much contrary to modern trend, and we have more and more babies born in the wedlock than out of the wedlock, whereby until 2015, we followed the global trend that we had less and less babies born in the wedlock. The trend changed in 2015, and since 2015, we experienced an upward trend. And the last data of 2022 we already have is 73%. So out of 10 babies, more than 7 are born in wedlock. And of course, we can say a lot of things about marriages, but certainly it is very important for stability questions as well. But let's talk about marriages a bit later. And if I may just say a couple of words really very shortly on what we did differently than usually other member states are doing when they execute their family policies. Then, first of all, it is very important in the Hungarian family policy system that there is a real option for families, for women, for mother, in particular, to stay home long with babies. It is possible in Hungary to stay home with one baby 3 years altogether. And it is also an option, a valid option. It's very important that it's not just a hypothetical option. And on the other hand, it is also very important because we also help women to return to the labor market if they wish to do that. After the 6 months of age of the child, parents, mothers in particular, have the option to return to the labor market, and they can keep the maternity or parental benefit in that sense for the other 18 months, which is due to the family, but they can return to the employment without any limitation, and they can keep that money as well, helping the families. It's very important that most of our measures is linked to legitimate employment. So we do not believe that much in universal care, so to say. And also another formulation of this method is just because you are middle class or you receive help from the state to raise your children, because the state is aware that actually just because you do not have poverty problems, raising children would certainly mean expenses in. Of course, it is very important that we apply some unique measures, philosophy of helping as many family situations as only possible. Because what we are certainly aware is that it is very important that we provide as much stability as only possible. Hungary had this problem before 2010, when the left-wing liberal governments were in power in Hungary. Many austerity measures, many changes were put on the shoulder of families. This actually caused that, whereby we had a very large proportion of both women and men in the best childbearing ages. The fertility fell to a record low because the instability, the economic instability, was felt very much by the young Hungarians. So I will just say a couple of words about these big measures. I know that we will speak about the just family taxation in a different question, so I will leave that out, despite the fact that that is very important, but just address the situation that the financial situation of families is taken into account very much. Actually, the improvement of the financial situation of families in Hungary is very much taken into account. We can state very proudly that we have 1.1 million more in employment than we had in 2010. This is a country of 9.7 million. So we never had such a high rate workforce working in Hungary and paying taxes. And of course, we very much looked into the question of home ownership. Central Europeans, among them Hungarians, are fond of owning homes. They do not want to rent, but they would like to own their home. So there is a big housing scheme available to families. The more children you raise, the more subsidy and very low interest credit you can take in order to purchase your own home. And of course, there are some specificities, and I will come to the end here. One is that a very pro-life approach is that every or nearly every family support measure is available to the family from the 12th week of the pregnancy onwards. So whereby the baby is not yet born, families are helped with the access to the subsidies, or for example to tax cuts. The same is true that we have to address the fear of very well educated women in particular of having babies, of interrupting their careers, so to say. So there are quite some measures in place in order to help them reconcile studies, work, and career with babies. One is, for example, that you can reduce or even eliminate your student loan if you have 2 or 3 children. Or as of this year, we have a new measure that if you give birth to a child, or if you adopt a child under you are 30 years of age, your entire outstanding student loan will be taken over by the state. Again, a recognition of early motherhood, which is, as we all know, is very important.
Wow.
And of course, we have quite some measures. Maybe one is worth to mention because it's very relevant to the rising rates of marriages, is that married couples where the mother or where the woman has to be, a wife has to be under the age of 41, are eligible in Hungary to a £27,000 loan, which can be turned into a subsidy in case the family has 3 children. But also, if they only have 2 children, after the birth of the second child, 30% of this loan will be converted into a subsidy and the family does not have to give it back. This is something extremely popular among the youth. More than 250,000 Hungarians took that possibility. And it is very important to state here that this is not bound to buying a property. Actually, it is a free-to-use loan, so the couple can do with it whatever they desire. They can start a business with. They actually use it as an own share to buy a house, but they can do with it as they desire, as they wish. And as a last point here, I would like to mention that that intergenerational solidarity is a guiding principle. So the Hungarian family policy tries to address the situation, of course, of parents raising children, but also tries to accommodate the needs and wishes of the grandparents generation as well. So there are many options, for example, how grandmothers can go to retirement at earlier age after 40 years of working period, or how actually still working, still active grandparents can take up child support and let the parents go back to work, and the grandparents can take care of the grandchildren. So this approach is also something which is very very well regarded, and it also shows that the acceptance of family policy measures is incredibly high within the Hungarian society, because practically all generation feels that their children, their grandchildren, their grandparents, their working class relatives are helped by these measures, and we are very happy to see that there is not much envy to be shown or to be seen when it comes to thoughts about the Hungarian family policy measures.
Wow, that's really impressive, especially certain things like the student debt. I mean, we in this country, people labor under students still trying to pay off their student loan 3 decades later, 2 decades later. And also about the births out of reducing births out of wedlock. Now in this country, we've just now, for the first time, the majority of births in 2021 were out of wedlock. So we can really learn something from Hungary, I think. So I'll move on to the next question. You mentioned about tax policy. So one thing that's very striking about Hungary is that it has very generous tax policies supporting marriage and child rearing. Can you tell us a little about these?
Certainly. It's very important that when Fidesz was first in government between 1998 and 2002, they already had a family taxation in place, which was then disrupted and mostly deleted by the left-wing governance. They only left some tax cuts, very small amounts actually, to those who raised 3 or more children. So when Fidesz took office again in 2010, only 106,000 Hungarians benefited from family taxation. Now the number is more than 1 million, because family taxation right from the fiscal year 2011 was reintroduced completely. So you can, in Hungary, if you have children, if you raise children, you can reduce your personal income tax after every child. And as the number of children grow, the monthly amount to be reduced will be higher and higher. In case of 1 child, this is monthly 30 euros. In case of 2 children, this is already 120 euros, so twice as much after the 2 children. And in case you have 3 or more children, then you can reduce the personal income tax of yours by 300 euro a month, which is a large proportion of the income. It's many. We also have some very unique measures. One is that we have a tax cut which is of smaller nature for those who are newlyweds. and they can reduce their personal income tax by a couple of 15 quid maybe, so 15 pounds maybe a month. But again, this is a nice recognition of them starting their life together. And of course, we have two, actually now already three more options. The first one was introduced in 2020, when the government introduced that those women, mothers who whenever in their life raised 4 children, will be exempted from paying any personal income tax throughout their career. This is a very nice recognition of motherhood and raising more than 4 or more children. And this benefits roughly 50,000 Hungarian mothers. So if you look at this from the fiscal perspective, this will certainly not ruin any country's public finances. On the other hand, in 2022, we introduced that Hungarians under the age of 25 are exempted from paying personal income tax as well. This benefits roughly 350 youth, young Hungarians. We all know that this is not easy to start a grown-up life, so to say. It's not easy to get a good job nowadays. There are all these options of apprenticeships and this and that, which actually prolong you in a mid situation between school and proper employment. So anything which increases your net income is something which is very much welcome. But here, whereby in the case of the four or more children, mothers, we do not apply any cap. Here, in the case of those under 25, we apply a cap because they are eligible to not paying any personal income tax up until the level of average income. So this is designed to help those who need it most, of course. So again, 350,000 Hungarians benefit from this, and we would very much like to encourage them to move out, to act on their own behalf. And I believe that this is something which certainly contributes to them leading an independent life. And as of this year, so as of January 2023, we have a new exemption to mothers who give birth or adopt a child under the age of 30. And they will be exempted from paying income tax until the end of the year when they turn 30. And again, here we apply the cap until the average income. As I have said, we have very encouraging numbers when it comes to what actually, or how many children actually Hungarians would like to have, how many children they would like to welcome in their own families. It's not just ideal number, but also planned number of children. On the other hand, prolongation of live birth is an issue in Hungary as well. Now the average age of women giving birth in Hungary is 29 years of age. Of course, if you start in your 30s, despite the fact that you might want 5-6 children, biology will certainly have its say at one point. So anything which can help us to reduce the average age of women having their children. Actually, fathers are just as affected. We just never talk about that much about it. We welcome that. So this new measure certainly is there, trying to encourage Hungarians to have their children, their planned children, at an earlier stage. Maybe it is very important to state here that no one is convincing anyone, rather their will or opposite their will, to have children in Hungary. So it is all policies are there to help those who desire to have children, who would like to have children. So as I have said, the Hungarian family taxation benefits more than 1 million Hungarian. Again, this country is 9.7 million. The family taxation is available to all family forms. You can have it as a married couple. You can share it with your husband or wife. You can decide that only one party takes it. You can have it as a single mother. You can have it or a single parent. So there is no limitation whatsoever when it comes to this possibility. So everyone who is raising children is eligible. And on the other hand, it is very important that it is economically also a very feasible measure, because all this money, it is a tremendous amount of money left at the disposal of the families, is largely spent within the Hungarian internal economy, because the services sector is very much taking up most of this money, as the services sector is characteristically run by and owned by small and medium-sized enterprises everywhere in the world, also in Hungary, and most of the SMEs are actually Hungarian owned. So even if we look at the economic effects from a wider perspective, family taxation is certainly something which we can recommend very much to anyone, because it's a just taxation. Families raising children have much more expenses than those who do not raise children, because of course they have more individuals in their families. So in that sense, we very much look into all the data, of course, and we are very happy that these fantastic possibilities are available to all Hungarian families, all Hungarians raising children.
Great. Well, the next question, I don't know, you may have said something about this already, but I was going to ask, in the last 10 years, Hungary's seen very significant reductions in out-of-wedlock births, in abortions and divorces. Can you tell us about this and explain how it's happened? Unless you feel you've
Let's start with the marriage one. Let's start. And I'm happy to speak about marriages. Let's start with the happier bit of it. So marriages, we have traditionally we had quite high marriage numbers until the 90s in Hungary, and then since 90. We had less and less marriages until 2012, so to say. So we had a constantly declining numbers, but we had a relatively steady but relatively high number of divorces in the country, and then we managed to turn this in 2012, 2013, 15, and especially from 15 onwards, we had a growing trend when it comes to the number of marriages. And as I have said, now we have twice as many marriages than we had in 2010. And of course, as we said, last time we had so many marriages was in 1986. Very, very different world for us. And it's very, very nice to see that despite the growing number of marriages, we do not experience that we would have more and more divorces, which could be a consequence as well. And so until now, we are happy not to see that. And I will come back to the numbers in a minute, but I would like to just share with you that when it comes to the proportion of children born in and out of wedlock, whereby in 2010 we had 59% of babies born in the wedlock, so 60%. We had only 52% in 2015. So until 15, as I have already mentioned, we followed the global trend, less and less babies born in the wedlock. But then the thing turned, and now we managed to completely break with that global phenomena. And we have an increasing number, and currently every out of 10, 7 babies born in wedlock. And why is marriage so important? It's not a moral question, but this is a question from the demographic perspective, that those who are married have more children than those who only cohabit. So it is very important that we encourage marriages, because marriage brings the necessary stability to the family. And in stability, we know that more children are born, especially in these crisis-struck times. Just look back in the last 3 or 4 years, we had so many crises, and they just keep on coming. So stability is something very important. When we asked our institute in a representative study, asked Hungarians about the 3 most determining factors when they decide upon the number of children. The first one was partnership, so practically marriage. as I have said, we have much more marriages. The second one is the stability of employment. As I have said, we have 1.1 million more in employment, and we have the fourth best unemployment rate in the European Union, 4.1%. And the third one is already a proper home ownership. So a family home which accommodates, which is large enough, which is cozy enough for the entire family. So marriage in that sense is also truly important, because it, first of all, it brings the stability, and the stability brings along having more children. How did we contribute to these nice numbers when it comes to marriages? First of all, it might be important to state that Hungary, also in the constitution, anchored that we believe in the traditional marriage. So in the Hungarian constitution says that marriage is a union of one man and one woman. So in that sense, all these numbers concern opposite-sex marriages. On the other hand, we have some measures which are solely open to married couples. One is that when it comes to home ownership, practically everyone who is either a cohabiting parent or a single mother, single father, they have at their disposal the subsidy to buy a home. But in case you are a married couple, you cannot just have the subsidy after your already born children, but you can say that you commit yourself to have more children in the future. So practically, if you, for example, you're a married couple, you already have one child, but you plan to have 3 or 4 children, you can say that I will have 3 children, and you are eligible to the entire subsidy, and you can buy a large enough home already, or you can build a large enough home, and you will receive the higher subsidy, and then you have years to fulfill your obligation that you will have 2 more children in that sense. So this is extremely popular. And of course, it helps to scale up the marriage rates as well. But as I have said, the same amount is open to everyone. You just can't opt for future children. That bit is only open to married couples. But they are not receiving more money; they just receive it earlier in that sense. On the other hand, we have the baby expecting subsidy I already mentioned, though that it is only open to married couples. And again, this is, as I have said, is extremely popular. More than 250,000 Hungarians made use of that and started their married life, their young life with a bit of a financial help as for a down payment for the mortgage or for some of these measures which are only open to married couple, and certainly these contributed to some more marriages in the country. On the other hand, the public perception of family life had been largely upscaled in this country in the last 12, 13 years. So it is much better to live in a family, in a large family. In Hungary, the recognition, the social recognition can't be compared to the one before 2010. And before going to the next question, I would like to say a couple of words about the abortions. Hungary had in the 60s and 70s years when we had twice as many abortions in this country than live births, twice as many. If just proportions of those abortions would not have been done, we would not face the same demographic challenges we face today. So we are very happy that we see that whereby we have a constantly downward trend when it comes to the number of abortions in Hungary, whereby it is also important to see that it had not been limited, or the government did not limit the access to abortions in the country. So this reduction comes from many factors, so to say. One factor is, for example, that right from 2010 onwards, when we had all these family taxation measures and pro-family measures introduced, right the next year, we could see that less and less babies who were 3rd, 4th, 5th in a row were aborted. because many of those babies were aborted because of financial reasons. And of course, as I have said, we have so many measures which encourage motherhood, which encourage family life, that certainly helps fuel the downward trend when it comes to abortions as well.